Hello, I'm Somi. I'm the founder of FemPeak, a Web3 education platform where we prepare you to participate in the ownership economy and the next generation of the internet. We are led by women and inclusive to everyone, ready to shape the new emerging world order driven by technology. Although we have recently shifted so much of our focus to Web3, we continue to cover other important topics around self-empowerment, career development, and entrepreneurship. One of the most impressive entrepreneurs that we recently featured on the platform is Anja Leissner. She has a fascinating journey as a health enthusiast, inventor, and innovator. For the past few years, Anja has dedicated her life to creating vegan cheese, and now their company has just closed their Series A investment round. I really enjoyed this conversation with Anja, where we discussed entrepreneurship with a little bit of cheese thrown in the mix. Now, without further ado, let's get right into the conversation with Anja Leissner. The thing I'm finding is that women seem to be their own enemy in terms of bringing more women into technology, helping them build businesses. When people ask me what's your biggest challenge, they often expect me to say, raising investment, for example, or being able to, the things that people usually would think like as the typical, like maybe men not being supportive or things like that. Yeah. But actually, no, I find that the hardest thing is actually getting women interested in technology, finance, even like crypto, as we were talking about, the percentage of people who are interested in it is very low. And I think the biggest challenge is actually getting women interested in it. I think once they become interested, it's a huge, shift that we're going to see. But because it's a numbers game, right? So to get more people into it, that this is one of the things that I find, most challenging. So I just was wondering whether you had any observation or thoughts on that.
Now, it's really interesting. So I am in the food industry, and I think the food industry is probably one of the few industry where women often are dominating and also in higher positions. So when you look at the educations that we have, at least here in Sweden, and you also look at the different position that, at different companies, you can see that women tend to be outnumbering the men. And that's also very interesting. It kind of goes hand in hand because my background is within biotechnology, and then I chose food science as my specialty. But again, food is maybe more a feminine subject. Whereas if you're gonna look at my, the people I interacted with at university, those that were studying the computer science, they were like 99% men. So there is this kind of preset division that I think it's very interesting, and I wish I had a divine answer for you. I really don't. I don't know how much it is society that kind of puts us in different categories from when we are kids, where we have different colors on our clothing. And you can also see like when there are t-shirts that have text on it, it would often be like, that is little girl or princess or something like that. But for boys, it's like Superman or I'm gonna be a CEO. So it starts very, very early on that we all like in the society just categorize male and female differently and kind of just, I don't know, subconsciously just kind of push it into different directions. Then I do believe that we have, we tend to be engaged perhaps in different things. And I found it very interesting trying to figure out how much is nature and how much is nurture. And I really don't have a good answer for you. I have seen now living in Stockholm that females in the tech, tomorrow is the International Women's Day. Yes, we're recording. Yes, we are recording, exactly. So today, the 7th of March. So tomorrow I'm meeting up with female entrepreneurs here in Stockholm. And there, I think about 90% of these females in this network that I'm a part of are in the tech industry or in finance. So they're like 90%, where 80 is in tech and like 10 in finance, and the rest is in different kind of recruitment, setups and companies. So that's what I've been tracking. So here in Stockholm, it feels like the female representation in the tech industry, it's much larger than, for example, in Malmo, where I used to be, where it was very far and few in between. So it's geographical. I think it's also is depending on which country you live in, and there's so many different aspects that come into play. And I think it's really interesting if you could identify it a little bit more in depth, because then you could also counteract it. Then you can also, and I think you have shown, I'm not, this is not my area expertise, but I do remember that I read about different kind of surveys they've done when they have promoted different kind of educations that are typically male dominated, where they have then inclined more towards the females. And they also saw, the increase in females applying for those educations. And so there's a lot of things you can do. And I also think, a strong female coming to university, or even coming to, schools of a lower degree as well, talking about what can you achieve as a female, what can you do as a woman in this industry, and kind of break these unspoken boundaries that we have. But I would love to hear your take as well, because I'm sure you always have brilliant ideas about how things are connected.
Thank you. You know what? That's interesting. So when we started FemPeak, the exact first question that we asked was exactly whether that's a nature or nurture thing, and we were trying to find that out. And we ran these think tank, sessions, a think tank for women in business technology. And we found that it came down to 6 reasons why women were not, and the 6 reasons were a shortfall in confidence, tech skills, financial literacy, entrepreneurship skills, and women's health issues, and family and relationship support. So women's health issues part was like, everything that affects a woman's life, from, PMS to childbirth to menopause, all sorts of things. And then it was obviously, the childbirth is a very big one. And then tied into that was family and relationship. And we found that, and of course, then confidence was a big piece. And what we found was that, so this is actually really interesting, because it's quite counterintuitive what happened, because what we discovered when we put it into action, it didn't work. And I will explain why. So the number one thing that seemed to come up was family. It was one of the reasons why, women started, they went into certain positions, and then by the time they were about to, get promoted or build, or if they had a business, if by the time they were about to, think about maybe raising investment and going to the next level, they would go and have children, and then that they would slow down. Exactly. And then by the time they got back, things had moved on, and then they had a difficult time catching up. And as the speed of technology is, development of technology is increasing, this kept happening over and over, and they fell behind. So I thought that, okay, this is interesting, and then women's health issues was also something that kind of was quite tied into that. And then that had a knock-on effect on their confidence, and then it went into this vicious cycle. And then as a result of that, they fell behind in terms of financial literacy and tech skills and entrepreneurship skills, leadership skills. So it all sort of was playing into each other. So when we started the platform, we thought, okay, we are going to put on sessions to discuss these things and help women overcome these challenges. It didn't work. It didn't work because women actually, like when we put on sessions about family and relationship stuff, they didn't want to engage. It was like the least interesting, to them. And it's probably because there's so much conversation about these things, and most people are like, family and relationship is such a personal thing, and same with health, such a personal thing. Nobody can say to you, if you are in a specific kind of relationship, if you have children, like nobody can tell you exactly what to do, because they are not in your shoes. Like I really get angry when people tell me, just take a break, you work too hard. I'm like, you're not in my shoes. You don't know
exactly
like what I'm dealing with, right? Like
totally.
I have clients, I have things that needs to be done, I have things that need to be launched at certain times, I have milestones, and then suddenly somebody gets ill and they are not here for 2 weeks, and then somebody has to put things together. It's a startup, it's like, really, you can't tell me how to run my business, or just take a rest, right? So I would imagine it's even worse in terms of relationships. Nobody can tell you what's the right relationship, what's the right way to do things, so that you can, for example, the whole thing about work-life balance. Like work-life balance is such a specific thing, right? Which means something different to everybody, right? You can't really tell anybody. There's no formula. So we stopped doing that, and then I was like, okay, so let's look at the other areas. So same thing with women's health. It was like everything to do with health and well-being is so oversaturated. People have heard so much about it. It's just not really, not really
capturing.
Yes. So we dropped that one as well. And then we were left with 4 other areas. So then let's look at confidence. The thing with confidence is that you don't become more confident by talking about confidence. You become more confident by learning technical skills, and by making more money, and by learning to invest it. So as of now, we are also like dropping that, not fully dropping it. We still have it, but like, it's not anymore like one of the major areas that we focus on. So then we discovered that our members were really interested in crypto, because they could see. And what I like about crypto, which is really interesting to me, is that I believe crypto is the money of people. Like they see for the first time that there's this new technology, new approach to money that puts the possibilities in their own hand, gives them the authority. So far, this has been really interesting, because I think if for us to solve the problem of getting more women into technology, and we can talk about why that is important, but for us to solve that problem, we need to make women financially empowered. And if we get them financially empowered, they become more confident. They will be in a better place to think about what to do with their, relationship, with their life, and with their health. So now I'm focusing on bringing more women into Web3, teaching them, and not just women. Also, we are expanding. We want to have female leaders, more female leaders and female voices, because we saw that as we were bringing these women in, to put them on the stage and get them to speak to our members, we were putting them in a position where they were only being seen as leaders by other women. So we want them to be seen as leaders by everybody, not just by women.
Right? Of course.
So that's why we are now expanding. And also I see that, I think that I'm going to focus more on getting women financially empowered and teaching them technical skills, that is including entrepreneurship and career development, all that stuff. So that's. But
I think that's absolutely the right kind of approach, because as you said, the other soft approaches, many of them have been made already. There's so much out there. So you really need to kind of tap into this drive, this ambition, this this just wanting to learn, wanting to educate, wanting to evolve and grow, and support that in women. I think that's definitely spot on the right approach. And that's also why I'm so so in support of you and what you're doing. And something just hit me as well when you were talking earlier about the women health thing, because that's something that is it's so crucial. It's so determining for our everyday life. And it's something that it's so it's really not spoken about in a relaxed way. It's a little bit at least I'm talking for Sweden. I'm not, I can't really say for other countries, but it's in Sweden, if one would say at work, oh no, but I'm feeling under the weather today because I have such a severe cramps, all the men would they would feel so super uncomfortable, and they will be oh, why are you even saying that? Hush, hush. And it's this taboo thing. And you have this sanitary commercial with the blue liquid because God forbid that it looked like blood. It's absolutely crazy. And there are so many things that we actually could do. We don't have to be feeling like this. We don't have to have that kind of cramps, that kind of headaches, that kind of mood swings. There are very natural, easy way to contradict that. So I find that really, super interesting as well.
We tried to have sessions about those things, but it was interesting. They were not super popular, and I would have thought they would be. So what I think is the solution is to have more women succeed in business and in technology.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So that they can go and create. So they
empowering them.
And because if we have more women, in our company, we are majority female, and I'm I just tell people, I'm about to get my period, and I'm just have a headache, and I'm not feeling well, right? And what they do, they fill in for me. Everybody is they know, and we are the same. We are all the same with everybody. It's are you okay? Oh yeah, just get my period, or I've got my period, and that's okay. Take it easy. Go home earlier. Just don't come into the office. We have this understanding because we are majority female, right? And I think if we have more companies that the people on top, the people who created the company are women, they have that understanding, and they know
it will trickle down.
Yeah,
definitely.
And same thing with investment, right? If you have more women sitting in that boardroom where they're making the decision to whether to invest in something or not, imagine somebody trying to pitch a product related to,
female hygiene.
Exactly. It must be an uncomfortable position to have to go into a room full of men and talk about
with the suits.
Menopause, because everybody will be just
and we really need to kind of take out the taboo and take out the drama of this, because it's extremely natural. It's no big deal, honestly. And another thing, I might be oversharing now, so
it's okay, don't worry about
disclaimer. I might
goes on my podcast.
But I was also thinking about what you said about family, because one thing that I think I mentioned to you when we spoke privately, but I had about 10 years ago, I had a consequence of a vaccine I took back then for the swine flu, which resulted in autoimmune neurological disease, which took 5 years to diagnose, and then took me 5 years to learn how to live with it. So for me, having children was pretty much not on the table for a very long time. And I have been with the same partner for 22 years now. So it's I have a very long-term partner, and I can talk to you about how you survive that in another episode. But I then, after I started my own company, and that was also, in the back of me really learning how to take this extremely kind of, bad thing and pressure, and being able to turn it into superpower, because I knew I'm like, I never take sick days, because I know no matter how bad I'm feeling, I will survive it. I will get through it. So I never call in sick, and I can always perform no matter like when, how, like no sleep or whatever. So first year in starting No Quo Foods, that my company was called back then, first time in my life, I think I was 30, 38, something like that. So, not the spring chicken. First time in my life, I felt the biological clock, and it was going boom, boom. It was like
what, that you wanted a kid?
That I wanted a kid. First time in my life, and most likely because I had this disease or this condition that I learned to overcome. And then, like 38 years old, started a company like 6 months ago, and then it shows up, and I was like, what am I gonna do with this? And I was talking to my husband, and I kind of ended up in a situation where I had to choose, like, am I gonna run this company and start this company and go for that, or am I gonna take a step away and go for being a mom? And obviously now here I'm sitting, like almost 3 years later, I did choose the company, and that is like, I don't think many people will be able to fully understand, that it was not an easy choice. I'm not going to pretend that it was definitely a like 6 cruciating months. We're going back and forth and pros and cons, and like, what am I even doing? But even to this day, no matter what happens to this company, I feel like, yeah, I did the choice I needed to make. And that's very, that's the situation I was in. So just tying back to what you say about family, and you're stepping out from the career cycle and then coming back in a completely different place and have to try to play catch up maybe for the rest of your life. And it's so unfair that it's always the females that had to carry this burden. It's not the males, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I had a similar situation. Not that I didn't want kids. I never wanted kids. So my biological clock somehow just didn't go. It just didn't. And now I have 2 kittens, and they're so much hard work. And like I can see why I don't have kids. And sometimes I'm just really focusing, and like Rumi comes in and taps on my shoulder. So he sits there and then taps on my shoulder. There you go, he's here. And it's so funny when he taps on my shoulder, and during the sessions sometimes. And then and sometimes when I'm really focusing, I just turn to him. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, and then I think, oh, poor thing just wants to play with me. I'm like, imagine if this was a kid, I would be terrible mom. So I never wanted kids, and you do get judged for that, like sometimes people are like, why you don't want kids?
What's wrong with you? You're not, I just don't want it.
Like, I don't know, my biological clock just didn't go off.
And that's also perfectly fine, and it's perfectly fine that mine went off way too late, and in a situation there there was also a lot of risk and complication. And honestly, due to the situation I'm in on health wise, the doctors, it's not like it was like a safe bet in any ways. It could be like, it could end up very, very poorly as well. And my husband really didn't want to take that bet at all. So, but people always tend to judge. And even my family, how many years haven't I heard like, oh, so we're never gonna hear the tapping of the small feet, and like, and people just don't get it. And then after you have passed a certain age, then people starting to be like, ooh, I don't dare to ask because they don't know the situation. But it's really funny, and it's also very interesting how, as we said, the females and the males are being subjected to completely different approaches and treatments in these circumstances.
Oh yeah, like sometimes when I was dating, people would say things like about, I want kids, and I would sometimes say, yeah, I would have it if you would have the kid. Like
exactly.
If you do
exactly. If you take care of it.
Because somebody said on one date, oh, but you can't make a unilateral decision by yourself. I said, I can, because it's my body. You're not going to tell me what's going to happen here. No. I'm totally happy to have a child with you if you are the one bearing the child.
Exactly. Then it's fine. We can talk about it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your decision to go into, food tech. So were you always a food entrepreneur, or tell me a little bit about that. And then your entire business is around cheese, right? Like you're
Currently,
creating
yes.
cheese. Okay, right. So this is quite interesting. So does the cheese, so you're making vegan cheese, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it's completely plant-based, plant-based.
Does it melt? Does it have
it melts, it spreads, it shreds, it fries. So we have different products. It crumbles. So
I'm so curious. Okay.
Yes, but I'll take you to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I come from, again, from Sweden, but from a family that most likely must have some Italian genes, because there's like always been these explosive dinners, passion for food, where the one that speaks the loudest is also the one that gets the attention. So everyone just screaming at each other. And this is very non-typical Swedish. So that was my upbringing. Totally. And my father was in the food industry, and from an early age, he will like take me along, and he will have me sampling different, like he developed ketchup and chips and foods, in all different areas. And he would have me sampling and trying it out, and like be his little guinea pig, because I was super invested in this. And then I can also add on top of that, I'm a huge nerd. I'm a huge nerd. I love, totally. I love learning things. I've been reading, like digesting books since I learned how to read when I was like, I don't know, 6 or something like that. And just like gathering information and being able to put that together and create my own puzzle, and then build something with it and be able to share it with others. That is like one of the biggest driving force for me in my life. It's that, and it's being able to do something that could actually have a positive impact on someone else's life. Those are my 2 biggest driving forces. So I have this with me. I'm studying at the university, biotechnology, food science. I'm working at companies. I have worked in the dairy industry. So I have also been, I've seen the full cycle of what's going on, what it takes to create 1 kilograms of cheese. I know every little detail behind it. I worked at Tetra Pak. I worked with flavorings. And I was also very much engaged at the university, loved teaching. And then in 2017, I did you can apply for innovation checks. So I applied for that, and I got 100 Swedish, that's like 10,000 euros perhaps. And that was just a small addition, but it made me able to focus my research on insect and plant proteins. So this is the end of 2017, beginning 2018. And during this very short assignment, and I was at an analytical lab, so I couldn't eat the things I was developing, because I couldn't risk, getting some toxic chemicals in me. So I could evaluate them and analyze them, but not really eat them. And I figured out, I invented a way to work with plant proteins very, very quickly. I put the insect protein like on the side and focus on plant protein. And I invented a way of how I could functionalize the proteins and use them as building block and build new stuff. So then, giving my background in dairy processing and technology in the dairy industry, I was like, okay, but what does the milk look like? How does those proteins molecule behaves, and how can I use this plant-based proteins and make them behave in a similar way? So this was the foundation. And when after these money ran out, I was like, what am I going to do with this? I have thousands more ideas. I have not been able to evaluate, try and taste my stuff. Like, what am I going to do? So I started talking to different companies, and like up to this point, I always been extremely ambitious and like dedicated in whatever I've been working with. But I never realized I was an entrepreneur. That thought never hit me, not even once. But now I was like, I have to, when you feel something is right to the core of your bones. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you can't just let it go. even when people like, what are you doing? Why are you pursuing this? Like, who do you think you are? It's like, I couldn't let it go. I remember I stood all on my own in this mass in the south of Sweden where they were showing different analytical equipment. And I was talking about this cheese company that I was going to have in the future that was like nowhere in sight. But I had this very strong, firm belief that this was going to lead to something. It had to lead to something. So I spoke to different companies trying to see, again, also thinking I would kind of like, I don't know, license my technology or like be incorporated into something bigger, not thinking I would leading it. And then I read an article about my co-founder, Soros, who comes from the tech industry, not food tech, but tech industry, and had identified like that he really wanted to find someone with a technical competence. I think he was looking for 2 years to try to find someone with the right technical competence and right personality to start a company together. So I read this article, someone sent it to me on LinkedIn, and I read this article about him, like, and the headline was Protein Visionary Wanted. And I was like, oh, that's me. I'm the one you want. So the first time we spoke, is him and I on the phone, we spoke for over an hour. And he very soon identified like, okay, it's you and me, Anja, we're going to do this. Well, I was a little bit more hesitant because I was
Where's
also,
he based?
Stockholm, and me in Malmö. So that's like, it's a 7-hour car drive in between. So I was like, yeah, but there are other opportunities and there's these companies that I could like collaborate with, and I could do this and I could that. And I was very like going a bit back and forth. But in the end, I decided to kind of go with him, burning a lot of bridges, may I add, back in Skåne, where I come from, like burning a lot of bridges. But that was the bet I was placing. So I took all my chip, put them on the table, and like got my ass up to Stockholm. Me or my husband for 2.5 years been commuting between Stockholm and Malmö before he found a job and moved up here as well. So that was my first, 2 years of this company, was just going back and forth every week between Stockholm and Malmö. And so we started, and finally I was able to go into a lab and taste and try my cheese, and the technology worked. And I did something that you can fry, and I did something that kind of melted, but not melted good enough. That was still very much, new back then. I did something that let crumble. So I was like really evaluating it, and we grew the company from like we had a seed round by the end of 2000. So we founded the company beginning 2019. By the end, we had a seed round, raised 3.4 million euros, which was a lot, given we were like 3 people and had no product, nothing to show for ourselves. So that was like, that was quite spectacular. And then the following year, 2020, we grew from 3 to 13 people, launched our first product, applied for our first patent. And, we also had our Series A round that we started, and we closed that one last year. And then we closed that at 16.6 or 7 million euros.
Nice. Amazing.
So that means that we can.
You've raised $20 million euros so far for cheese.
Yes. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I love cheese, but even for me, that's a lot of money
in cheese. I need to taste this cheese.
Yeah, totally. I'll hook you up.
Yeah, I really want to try it. Okay, so this is fascinating stuff. So what's wrong with normal cheese that we have to spend so much money?
Well, actually, that depends on how you see it. And me, I know what kind of company I'm driving and building here, but I'm not the one who will ever stand and point and like put blame on people for how they live or what they eat.
Are you vegan?
I'm not. I'm a flexitarian. I took a hunting license actually when we got this dog, which was kind of my personal journey towards eating very, very tiny amount of animal products, because I felt like if I can't really take full responsibility for hunting down the meat and doing it from the beginning I'm just eating something that's very conveniently packaged and I never have to see any of the gross stuff, then I don't felt like I could eat meat with a good conscience. So I took a hunting license. Unfortunately, my dog had an injury and I never really could go hunting with him. So that was not the point, but that was the start of my journey to eat more, to be more conscious of what I eat. So I very rarely buy animal product. I do buy cheese if I don't have, enough of our cheese at home. So cheese is the one thing that I do buy. But I think, and also if we're going to talk like diets, it's so, I kind of hate that word diets, because one thing is for sure, is like two people, you will not find two people that have identical microbiota. You will not find two people that have identical metabolic system. Yes. So hence, like what I eat works perfect for me. I'm feeling great. You can eat the same thing and it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly. So like, this with diets is just bull.
Definitely. No, I agree. I tried to become a vegan when I was a student in Scotland. Definitely not a good place to be a vegan. This was a very long time ago, right? This was like 2006. And I was invited to America by the US State Department at the time for 3 weeks. They paid for my trip, everything, and I was like, went there, went to the Chicago Tribune, we spoke with the senators and stuff. And that, because I was studying political philosophy and it was interesting. And they were, and because I came from Iran, they were interested to talk to us. This was when US was considering going to war with Iran, and we were trying to tell them, please don't do it, because look, it doesn't work. Look, you went to Iraq and it didn't work. Don't do it. So I was vegan during that trip, and it was like it was such a bad time, like and oh my god, I felt terrible. I felt so ill, I was so it really didn't work for me, like I need meat. I need it, like my body needs it, like like a few days, like let's say 3 or 4 days before my period, it starts that I only want red meat. Right? Like literally, like my body is screaming, steak, please give me steak.
Bloody steak.
Yeah, exactly. And the steak has to be like, quite bloody, and I need to see it.
Yeah.
And then like
I hear you.
At 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, like say a couple of days before. So 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up really hungry, and all what I want is steak, fish, and egg. Like I have a massive breakfast at 5 a.m. and then I go back to sleep, and this only happens like at a certain time every month, like literally like a clockwork. So my body is telling me something.
Yes, exactly. And this is what
I don't know how,
and the society will often try to tell us, oh, you shouldn't eat carbs, or you shouldn't eat sugars, and I kind of promote that to a certain extent, but still you always need to listen to your own body, because if you are in tune with yourself, you will know when you're eating something that you're feeling good with. Definitely. Right? It's like and this health claims related to food. So let's talk about cheese. So there are studies saying that we know that high cholesterol is not a good thing. We know that one we can't really look away from. But directly how it's being linked, there you have different studies that will tell you different things. So you have studies that will tell you that eating a lot of meat and eggs and cheese and stuff like that will impact your cardiovascular diseases or cardiovascular health. And then we can also find studies that will show us completely the opposite. So it's such a complex area that I think it's super dangerous just to isolate different things and think that that's the full truth. You have to look at the bigger perspective. So when it comes to cheese, I'm actually never ever gonna be saying, oh, but vegan cheese is much healthier, because it also depends what's done in the plant-based cheese. If it's modified starch and coconut oil, not that healthy, darling. It really isn't, then it might be better for you, for your body, if you eat a regular sheet. However, the thing that I cannot ever look away from is, of course, how animals are being treated. Witness it firsthand. It's absolutely awful. Doesn't go for every farm, not every man, and not every farm, but definitely most parts. And that is a vicious thing to witness. That I cannot disregard from. And I cannot disregard the fact that it takes a lot of resources, environmental resources, to produce cheese. So for example, 1 kilogram of hard cheese requires 10 liters of milk. Mm-hmm. And the cow itself, it's like the energy conversion, you have 80% going off in like energy emissions. So it's only like 20% that's actually being converted into some kind of substance. So it really is a very expensive, when it comes to the climate environmental impact. It's a very expensive product. If you're going to look at, because people are often very aware that meat has like an environmental cost. But the only meat that's worse than cheese is beef. If you look at poultry, if you look at pork, if you look at any other meat, cheeses actually have a higher cost, have a higher impact, have more greenhouse emissions that any of those meats have. And that, no matter how you look at health and so forth, that's things that you can't really disregard.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. My answer to that is a few things. One is, sorry, the world is just overpopulated. Fewer people need to have kids, like,
true.
Let's just slow down the baby making. That's I say that two of my best friends have just, one of them is pregnant and one of them had a baby, and I'm so happy. I can't wait to play with them. But I'm like, they're doing it.
I hear you.
Like, I have to do it. So one thing is like, you know what? Let's just have fewer babies. The second thing is, let's just eat less. Like, exactly. Like, I think that one of the best things that you can do for your body is just eat less. Like, I fast, when I'm not hungry for meat at 5 o'clock in the morning, but that's only like literally 2 days a month, but like most days I fast until about 2 or 3 p.m. I find, like when you tune into your body, especially, when you meditate, when you like eat less, you have a better connection with your body. So when you, I know the things that are not good for me. Like, for example, too much carbohydrates really slow me down, me down. Like whenever I eat a low carb diet, my brain functions better, my hormones seem to function better. So
more energy.
I'm not saying no carb, it's not keto, but it's just like a little bit,
low carb.
More on the low carb side. And then just generally eating less. And I keep, I go through phases, like a very long time where I have no chocolate, no sweets at home, and that's really helpful, and then sometimes I fall off the, somebody comes around and they bring in chocolate, and then I'm like, oh, this is so nice. And then like I go through a phase of like, suddenly for a week I have chocolate in the house, and I'm like, all right, no, we're not buying any more chocolate, so because I know that not eating sugar is incredibly good for my body. Like really, same. The low sugar diet is the best for like brain function. My brain just functions so well. I sleep better. My skin is clear, all of those things. So I think it's all about tuning in. So if everybody eats a bit less, if we don't make so many babies, and and we don't need to produce, we are overproducing certain food, we are overproducing
and wasting it,
wasting so much food. So like, just let's have less stuff in the in that supermarket, and just focus on producing things in a very as ethically as possible, and I do believe that as humans we are not carnivores, like omnivorous, right?
Omnivores,
So like, I think that also there maybe are people that are genetically less, they just need less meat.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
you know, that's totally fine for them.
Yeah, great for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Many people say that they feel amazing eating a lot of carbs. Great for them. It's you know, so it's just if we all tune into our bodies and eat less, produce less.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not about not having meat. It's about producing less of it, right? Producing less of it and doing it in an organic way, in a, you know, in a
more sustainable way. Yeah, definitely.
I remember I once watched a documentary which was fascinating, a very, very long time ago. I haven't watched any TV series for 2.5 years. So I keep like no Netflix, no TV series, nothing.
You don't have time for that.
I don't have time for it, yes. But a long time ago, I watched I don't know if it was Netflix, may have been actually BBC or something. It was like a documentary about food around the world. And there was this gentleman who was a Chinese chef, and he was traveling around the world, or maybe around China. But there's one place where one scene, I never forget it. He steps into the river, a shallow river, and he picks some kind of, looks like an insect or something, you know, and he looks at it and he says, you know, like, this incredible food, you know, like he kisses the food and he's like the thing, you know, and then he eats it. And I'm like, and he says, like, I'm grateful for, you know, for this to replenish my body. This is the life cycle. And I totally agree with that. Like, I remember, you know, when I was growing up in Iran, my every summer we used to go to the north of Iran where my uncles lived, and they had farms, and they had, you know, like pet chicken, you know, they had like chickens, and like my you know, my uncle, you know, he would pick up this chicken and he would kiss it, and then, you know, it was on my plate like 2 hours later, and we learned to kind of like, you know, it was like this chicken
appreciation,
and had a great life up until then, and then it was now replenishing our bodies, you know, and it was like it's a life cycle, right? So like we die and we go into ground, and then, you know, that kind of, you know, feeds the plants and the, you know,
that the new chickens will eat someday. They will eat the corn that came out of that, you know.
Yeah, exactly, right. So that's my view. I'm sure that a lot of people would find that gross. I look, each their own. Totally,
but I can appreciate that. You know, I can appreciate that. Yeah, and I think what you're also tapping into here is that accessibility, over accessibility, and also having things come to you too easily, that is really dangerous. That is the route to diseases. That is the route to procrastination. That is the route to, you know, a generation in front of the computer screen. I think one of the biggest key to my success is that even though, like, I'm not complaining about my life, but I've been through hardships. So like, it's nothing has come easy to me. I have fought for finishing my education because I got sick, you know, during my education. I have fought for, you know, staying healthy and staying alive, and they were like, now it's very difficult to see, but if you would reverse me about 10 years ago, I was so poorly that some days I would have to choose if I'm gonna wash my hair or walk my dog, because I couldn't do both. Like, it's an extreme situation, but I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful that I had that. And not everyone hopefully needs to go through that kind of ordeal, but I really think that having to fight for what you want to achieve, having to you know, have that accomplishment, again, building confidence, going back to what we talked about earlier about increasing the confidence in females by, you know, teaching skills and letting them do things and accomplish things, that is really the key to any success. And it could be on a, you know, on a very, very easy, accessible when in your working place, but it could also be, you know, achieving and succeeding in evolving yourself on a spiritual level. Whatever success is for you, it is like when you're facing resistance and you're overcoming it, you're learning something that you didn't know before, you're doing something you haven't done before, you have a failure, you have a setback, but you don't let it defeat you. You get back up and you do something, and you learn from it, and you move on and you move on. That's how, like, that really is the only way forward. And I'm so grateful and blessed that I have been, I've been going through the stuff I've been going through in my life, because I would never be here otherwise.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this is probably a good place to. I would have loved to talk to you for much longer, but we have a session today, and I think this is a place to because bring it to an end, because I think that one of the, when I was growing up, I had so much pain, I had a very difficult childhood, and I used to think that nobody deserves to go through this much pain, and I wanted to make life better for everybody else, so that they would never go through the things that I went through. But now when I look at the people around me, and sometimes I think like maybe sometimes people have too little adversity. Especially in the Western world,
definitely.
Little adversity also is not a good thing, it's just, you need a little bit of everything to I think it should not be to a point that so life shouldn't be so hard that you are under so much stress that you could snap. Because I was at that point many times. So that's not good, and I don't wish that on anybody.
No, agreed.
But on the other hand, if you don't get challenged at all, so I think the best way, and what I wish for humanity is, the best thing for us to happen is that we would be in a position that we can choose how much to challenge ourselves, rather than have
I like that
things add up. So if you can. If you develop the level of awareness and yet be comfortable enough that you are not in a state of anxiety and but you push yourself, and then that's kind of like when you push yourself to build a business, when you push yourself to excel at sports, or you pick any challenge, learn an instrument,
Exactly. And you have to overcome the fear of failure. You have to stop seeing it as a failure. You have to be okay with losing sometimes, with not always winning, with not always succeeding, because then when you kind of reduce that fear, that's also when you step out of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. That's where you have the guts to take the big leaps and find that faith in yourself. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Amazing. So we've covered everything from cheese to fundraising to confidence. When are you coming to London? We should get together. I really would love to.
Totally, definitely. Let's make that happen sooner rather than later. I would love to sit down with you.
We should.
Every time I have the honor to interact with you in any shape and form, I always walk away enlightened and a better person. So thank you.
Oh my God, no, thank you. You're too kind. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in London, and hopefully, maybe I come to Sweden or something.
Yes, you're welcome. I will really treat you to all the cheeses you want.
I know. I can't wait for that. Awesome. I'm going to press.
Take care.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Anja Leissner. I, for one, look forward to when her cheese products hit the market in the UK. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Show.